Hey everyone, it's Amaka.
And Camellia.
And today we have two guests coming on board, Ali and Kamal, and they are jumping in to talk to us about a very complex topic, cancel culture. It is very complex,
Very.
and at the same time, it's simple.
Yeah, but what does it mean?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much that surrounds it that I think people have different ideas of what cancel culture is meant to do. And being a blast, I think it's been around forever with everything going on right now with the emergence of social media. It's so easy to just shout, say cancel, and it's over and done with.
I blame
Or the person.
the delete button on the keyboard because we can press undo, but in real life you can't press undo.
You can't. And once it's out there, it's like you're twiddling your thumbs trying to see who is going to catch it, and then the whole craziness
It's like a
begins.
messed up board game.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, it's needed. But at the same time, it's goes a little too far, excessive. And so I think that's a conversation we definitely want to have with both of them because they're into pop culture, they're into politics, they're into pretty much everything. And so it would be great to kind of pick their brains to kind of get a general idea of what they think about it, what it's meant to do and what it's doing and how it can be better for the community when it is used properly. So please don't go anywhere. Come back to us after the conversation and we'll give our final thoughts. See you soon.
Welcome back to Let's Talk, the Afro Style podcast. Today, we're tackling one of the most debated topics of our time, cancel culture. Is it a necessary tool for accountability? Or has it gone too far? Where do we draw the line between holding people responsible and completely writing them off? Joining us for this important conversation are our guests, Kamal Nkerle and Adot. We're breaking it all down, the good and the bad. Enjoy the show.
Thank you guys for joining us today. I know this is going to be an interesting conversation we're going to have, and I just figured who best to bring in here than Kamal and Ali to discuss something that we know is a complicated conversation. And I actually had to do a little lookup just to see the idea of cancel culture. The first question I want to throw at you guys, Kamal, you start, and then Ali jump in. Is cancel culture is it still here?
Yes.
It is. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was ever here slash it's still here. I mean, just depending how you're thinking about it as a culture, right? People think of cancel culture as, I don't even know how people really define it, right? It's really just people who don't like the stuff you say, right? Which has always been a thing. It's always been a thing where people would group up and there was a popular opinion and the unpopular opinion, and people would tell you that they don't like it, right? And most of the time, the popular opinion aligned with the most powerful people in charge, right? And so it was never considered cancel culture. It was just like, this is what it is. So you better do that, or else you won't be able to live your life, right? So like recently was coined cancel culture, in my opinion, really because it was just not directed from the top down. It was kind of like horizontally directed across, right? And so then it became cancel culture because people were, judging the things that people say, right? Because most of the people who are victims of cancel culture, like they're victims only because people said something one time, right? And for the most part, like there's been nobody who's actually been canceled who went away. And everyone who's been canceled, they're right there. They didn't go anywhere. Many people got more money after that. So it's hard for me to even judge and then say that it's still here or not. It's definitely still here. Right? If you're talking top down, especially, right, you can be clear about, you got to know how you can act and what you can say basically across the board, depending on your job and everything like that, like at all times, right? So, uh, yeah, I would think it's still here. If you think that there is a culture that cancels like what you can say and stuff like that, it's definitely still here. Absolutely.
Well, I think that's why I'd say it's here because it's culture, right? Before it was kind of like a top down kind of thing, but we weren't actually policing our own conduct on the level that the top was. But once it became social media based versus community based, let's say, right? If you do something within the community that everybody dislikes, then it can become something. But if you do something in the social media era, it can become a campaign, and that campaign is basically directed at destroying your livelihood. So, in the many people, maybe famous people who haven't been canceled, within the cancel culture, there's so many smaller people who've lost jobs, just because once the mob gets involved in the cancel culture wave, and it can go either way, usually, although most of the time it goes in a direction of virtue signaling versus getting canceled over not being like right wing enough. But sometimes you can get involved in some cancel culture over communism. They'll tell you you're a communist when you're advocating for leftist values, and somebody's going to try to cancel you because the parameters are still anti-communist, let's say. So that's why I was just saying, yeah, it still definitely exists, because even though nobody's directing it, it's instilled in our culture at this point.
And it go too
But
far.
not even, I mean, but even in that context, the people who are getting fired from their jobs or whatever is really for violating a policy, right? It's not for the mob doing anything, right? The mob is able to expose the fact that you are violating a policy that already existed. All right. And so most of the time, that's what it ends up being on the lower levels for people. It's the only people that really the mob is what does it is famous people, because it's only because that's when it affects them, because enough people care, right? Once it hits a certain level, you hit that threshold, it goes over. Now you're outside the appetite for what they have here. They do something to you, right? Or for like lower level people, it doesn't take a bunch of people to do it, right? It just takes one person to call and you violated something, right? And they post it, they send it to the job, you get fired, right? And so,
So
right,
essentially,
that's always been something that can happen. You know?
it's like a Yelp, basically. You just call somebody out and boom, they lose, the heads will roll. The how it
Yeah,
goes.
I mean,
I think it's just so interesting.
depending on your job, right? I mean, it
True,
depends.
true.
Like I know, we work with people that, right, it's a very low bar. Right? Once they know it's there, then that's it. Right?
Yeah.
So
But I think it's interesting you saying the horizontal, like back and forth, like the attacks are being horizontal and this idea of top down. And I got me thinking that cancel culture has even evolved into coming from the very top going down. I mean, when we're talking about canceling certain holidays and celebration, like, is that still a part of cancel culture? Basically, trying to I don't reverse things. Take away Juneteenth, take away, Black History Month. Like that's a form of cancellation, I would say.
yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about it as far as cancel culture, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, there's always been kind of the directive from the top down as to what is acceptable parameters for your society, right? And right now we're in the period where the top down parameters have changed, right? So now you got to work within, what they're saying is okay, right? And there was always that horizontal, like, so then they called the horizontal the cancel culture. But then, like, even previously when it was being enforced, right, it was often enforced, right? There'd be, even if you go back to the, mobs that would be there to enforce certain things, right? There'd be lynchings, there'd be even Salem witch trials, stuff like that, right? You can go way back where there was a horizontal enforcement of that top down, right? Where you were getting a whole bunch of people showing up at somebody's house with pitchforks or whatever, right? It's just that normally the people that did that, it was just to kill them, right? It was normally not to ruin their job or whatever, right? Versus now it's like, oh, it's to, ruin your perception within the culture that you're in, right? But like we said, a lot of those people that you're a victim of that, you just go to the other culture where it's fine, and then you're just fine, right? You just can't hang out with any of your old friends anymore,
Mm.
right? But you know, you can go make new friends who all agree with you.
That's interesting because like it's such an echo chamber online, so you can always find that Craigslist crew for like of people that'll
Right.
feel the same way. I thought it was interesting, Ali, too, how you talked about virtue signaling. Can you define that a little bit more? Because I think that's a huge cultural problem.
Well, because you'll see it on now on both sides, right? People tend to take anything like, oh, I want to protect this community, and they only weaponize it to cancel other people. It's not that they actually care about this community. It's that they want to use this language of care and protection in order to villainize another person so that they can destroy their livelihood in some way or another. And that's what you see of a lot of the cancel culture because people are often just weaponizing their ideals to get people riled up so that they'll agree with them in order to take down somebody who they might have had an argument with. And that's more their reasoning than it is like, oh, I care about this issue or that issue.
Yeah.
Then that means that cancel culture can actually go a little too far. Then is that what you're saying? Where
Well, that's a manipulative construct.
yeah,
Where somebody's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'm
I
protecting,
think that
Yeah.
but
at
it's
its
really
top down now, especially in like the social media, social engineering phase of it, it's for us to create parameters that we, and fourth rails that we can't talk about, right? So that there's certain speech that we just simply can't have, certain concepts we can't address. And I think that's more the intention of cancel culture, but it's just been let wild in the community. But then when you, like Kamal's saying, when it goes from left to right in parallel, we're just policing each other's conduct instead of having open discussions about what we think and feel, that's limiting all of us, but that's also protecting the power structure that's at top because now we can't talk about certain things.
Well, that cuts in both directions, though, right? Because there were certain
Absolutely.
things you couldn't talk about in order to protect the less powerful, right? Which is one side leans towards one side and one side leans towards the other side, right? There's certain topics where, you know, you're just like that's not an acceptable thing, right? On the left, certain things with immigrants, certain things with racism and things like this, right? Where it's like that's these are out of balance on this side. There's other things on this side where same topics really, about immigrants, about racism, about history, about stuff like that on the other side, where you're like this is outside the bounds, right? And that one protects one side and one protects kind of the other side, and it's kind of
Well,
everybody in the middle that's having to do the shuffling between this and that and making that decision.
and that's what comes to a question to some extent. I mean, if you're talking calls to action and things like that, then that would be what constitutes, I think, out of bounds, right? When you're calling for harm to another group of people, but spreading your bad ideology is it's that's what it is. Unfortunately, it's to the audience to debate. So there's not really anything that should be deemed as off limits in terms of a conversation if you're not acting somebody to act upon anything and you're just exchanging ideas. So
that
once you
has definitely posed a gray area a lot of recent times, if you will.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean
Because they say,
ultimately
I wasn't calling anyone to action, but they know the crowd that they're appealing to, and that crowd wants action. So it's literally just say the word, you know?
and the thing is, and sometimes those people that are instigating it are actually the words that they use will actually make people that it goes beyond cancel culture, where
mhm.
it is now used more like a weapon, not necessarily as a way to at least bring, like you said, bring some middle ground where the two sides or whatever sides are involved can come together and get some kind of understanding. And that's where I think a lot of concern is now in terms of cancel culture being a weapon and not a necessity to at least help correct the wrong.
Mhm.
And that
yeah, I mean, I think that was a good point that Elliot brought up, right? That even when it's called virtue signaling, the term virtue signaling is normally used by the right versus the left, right, as a term. But yeah, like it does happen on both sides where people will use this topic of you messing up in one area simply to take you down when you know that person doesn't actually care about this topic or these people or anything like that. And so it definitely can be used as a weapon generally, right? The ability to get someone in trouble or affect their livelihood, right? That can definitely be used as a weapon. It often is. Right?
so does that mean that the essence of what it's meant to be used for is at this point not as strong as it should be, or is it just
No,
because
it's as strong as ever because again, there's a lot of fourth rail subjects that's on the left or the right. It doesn't really matter. They'll keep you in the parameters that still keep essentially the 1% protected, insulated from your criticisms in the best way. Like even think about YouTube censorship. You can't use the R word. I should be able to say the R word because it's a serious thing. And powerful people are doing the most of it. You can't say a PDF file because a PDF file That's a type of file. That's not a type of person. But we've been distilled into having a fourth world where we cannot discuss this tremendous issue that is perpetuated by powerful people because what? Now it shields and now we have to talk about it. And we have all these fun code words for things that we should be able to talk about freely, especially when they're happening in the world. So who are we protecting with that when we're saying you raped them? You're turning it into a euphemism. It's very strange and scary, but these are the terms that have been said around us that we're now censoring ourselves with. So it's already
Yeah,
been,
I mean,
was
that's
that
just, ends up being algorithm, laziness of algorithm, and the ability, the size of the platform, and the ability to actually police it, right? Well, they're cutting staff and doing those kind of things, right? So now they just have the algorithm to detect those words and they cut it, right? So that's just really the workaround that people take. But I mean, I get the point as far as like having to talk around subjects and having to do that in order to avoid the conversation and then getting stricken, right? But that's only in order to be monetized and things like that. Like it doesn't take your video down, your video will be there, right? You can have the conversation, they're just not going to let you get paid to do it, right? So the
right?
people
Which
act like that's so it's like no, you can have that video on your channel and just it's not monetized, right? That's just what it is. You can have those conversations, just know this isn't a monetized video. Go about your business, right? Which people do, right? Especially if you have a subscription, then you can do that, right? So a lot of these things that we consider as cancellation is because like they're framed within the context of like the structure of needing to make money that we live in. But a lot of these things is like you could do it, people do it, you can keep talking, versus the actual kind of cancellation where you're actually silenced, right? Where you're actually silenced,
right,
and
but we
and
live in a world where financial death is close to death, right? So at the very least, you would think a platform centered on speech would incentivize telling the truth or speaking honestly rather than disincentivizing it. But if you're saying that it's disincentivized to speak truth in many areas, then it's
you're
gonna
just you're just not incentivized by money. If the truth is what you want to spread, you'll spread it. It'll get the views. It just won't make any money off of it.
Yeah.
Right. And you can, it's very easy to section those conversations off. It's like, this is a video about that topic. Boom. Right. The rest of my channel is like, but this one's demonetized. Right. People just want to be able to do that all the time. Right. And so they silence themselves because they're like, well, not only do I have to be able to make the video, it has to make money at the same time while I'm spreading the truth. It's like, you don't spread the truth. You can spread the truth. And you can send that video around and you'll get just as many views. You just won't make any money, especially if you have a
well,
large platform. It's
it
going to
won't
pop up.
make
People
any
can see it.
the
Right.
algorithm
And you won't make any money.
down usually as much as
Right. But people who have subs, like you have a million subs, it'll pop up in people who are sub to you. Right. It won't get the algorithm, but the people who are sub to you will still pop up like any other new video you do. So these people with large platforms, they could always do that. They're just choosing not to do it because they got to make money. Right.
Okay.
And they want to act like they're being canceled and all these things.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Let's Talk, the Afro Style podcast with Amaka and Camellia. If you're enjoying the conversation, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify and YouTube for new episodes and exclusive content. Stay updated on the latest news, insights, and behind-the-scenes peeks by following us on social media or emailing us at info@afrostylemag.com. We're always on the lookout for inspiring guests, fresh perspectives, and exciting collaborations. Reach out and let's connect. We'd love to hear from you. Now back to the show.
So, what can you say since cancel culture in itself can be used as a weapon? And at least I feel like it's being used more of as a weapon than ever before, unfortunately. What do you think the public, we as a community, should do to know when to use cancel culture appropriately and when not to use it? Because, like you said, there are people who may do something one time and then boom, it's cancel culture. I also think that cancel culture is not as hot as it used to be, though it's still, like you said, people are still held accountable. But back in 2020, it was a hot thing. Now it's not. But now people use it more so as a weapon than ever before. What do you think can happen in terms of change as to when to use it appropriately and when not to use it?
I mean, I just think you just have to have a decent moral compass as to what you're doing, right? I mean, if you're morally consistent with when you're getting mad about things, and you actually mean it, right? And then you're not trying to do it just to destroy someone's life. Like you can correct people, people can be corrected, people can have these conversations if you want to be a reasonable person, right? Most people on the internet don't want to be reasonable people, right? That's why most people in real life, like, they don't act the same way, even about these things, right? Even about these kind of topics where on the internet you're gonna, dive in and get all these people on them. In real life, you might just be like, "Hey, what are you saying?" And then they'll be like, "Huh, what?" And then you'll have a conversation, and then they'll stop, right? So I mean, people being consistent about, like, they said this and this is a 4 out of 10, right? Let's not destroy their lives when I've seen a 10 out of 10. We've all seen a 10 out of 10. We've all seen, like, yo, this is the one. This guy's saying something wild. This guy's doing something crazy. This guy's really hurting somebody. And then you can act appropriately. And then, people just internet, just gives people that feeling where they can jump in with everybody else, which happens in real life, right? We got mob mentality in real life. It's just when people are together in real life, you're just less likely to get to those extremes because they're looking at someone in the face.
Ali, what do you think?
I think it's a weapon, but if we continue to use it as a weapon against each other, ultimately it's just going to get co-opted, and it's already been co-opted. The same terms of cancel culture that we use on
Yeah.
ourselves, powerful people use to cancel other people, like the I can't remember his name. Was it Tony Blair? I'm not sure. The former Labour Party leader in the UK who advocates for labor rights mostly, actually, authentically. And when it came down to it, they started to use terms like he was insensitive to gay rights or something like that in order to get the public and the people on who would otherwise be on his side against him. You can even say,
Tony Blair had all types of wildness going on.
again, it might
It's,
not be
you know,
Tony Blair. I'm not exactly
same
sure,
thing with
but
Nigel or whatever. So
yeah, but it's going to be those kinds of terminologies ultimately, or those terms that they use to villainize people who are advocating on behalf of the rest of the people against the powerful. They're going to use those same kind of things, and they'll be able to use them same kind of scandals when they're planting them on people, even if it's untrue, or using those same kind of rumors to get people not to side with people. So just being more open to speech, not canceling people, because once it does it, it creates this mentality where, again, once you hear a certain kind of allegation, whatever it is, this person is cut off from society, and it's going to take so much for them to climb back from it. So to not allow cancel culture to really prevail and to allow more open conversation is the only way to beat it, because when it's coming from the top down, we're allowing them to dictate the terms of our conversation. And then that means we can never speak out against them.
Wow. Why do you think people are so impressionable? Like, what is making people so vulnerable to this mob mentality? Like, why can't people just, I don't know, not follow the leadership of manipulative people? Like, why are we like this?
I mean, we've always been like this as people. It's not different. I think, unfortunately, or, if you want to say, the church had more influence over people. So their sense of community, at least within themselves, had that. But they've always been subject to the influence of charlatans, pipers, people who come into town and sweep them off of their feet, because many people don't think for themselves. So with the way that the internet is here, the internet's become a lot of people's god. It's a lot of people aren't going to church. They're
It's
praying
so
to
true. Just the addiction to the phones, like when we
yeah.
need comfort, when we
Mhm.
need social connection,
Yeah.
going straight to our hand.
validation. All of it's there for them, and they don't need to look too far else for it. So once you start having these echo chambers, and again, they're built up on the right and the left, the politicians don't help, the media don't help, so they're also feeling it too. But it's polarizing everybody. So then you've got two sets of people with two sets of ideologies willing to cancel each other or to use each other's terms to try to cancel each other. And that again just insulates us from each other and doesn't make it so we can never unite against anything, which is totally what the Zuckerbergs of the world want from us.
Pure chaos.
Yeah.
Chaos, because that keeps us scrolling.
Well, This was a great conversation, and I'm sure we'll definitely have more to talk about. Thank you guys for taking the time to like jump in and kind of give your 2 cents, because this is definitely a sensitive topic that people are not always so keen to talk about. But the fact that you guys took the time to do so, I really appreciate it. But you guys, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will definitely be connecting soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, and we'll talk soon. Thanks so much.
No problem. Bye.
Final thoughts.
Okay, that was an in-depth conversation.
We're just trying to wrap our brains around this phenomenon. Like this term, what is it? How is it used? And there was some really enlightening moments. Really, the way it was described as a weapon. You know?
Yeah.
Because you're right. It can be a good thing.
It can be a good thing.
Yes.
But at the same time, I think now more than ever is used more like a weapon. And that's what I've noticed.
It sucks when it should be used as a weapon and it isn't used as a weapon, where someone's not canceled for something that is just like, oh my God, this is definitely not right. Right? Like, I'm thinking, okay, specifically, like Christine Blasey Ford and Brett Kavanaugh. You know, like that should have been a cancel moment. Am I alone? I don't know.
I think I think the reason why is because power, but at the same time, I think it's really because of how far people have taken it to the point where it's unnecessary.
It's almost made it moot.
Yeah, so it's almost like, okay, you guys are going too far. So what it's meant to be doing, it's not doing because it has been taken too far. And so the people that should be canceled are not, because people
we're tired.
Like, we're tired. It's like cancel culture overload, you know, exactly. So I think having to hear them give their thoughts about it coming from their point of view was actually pretty enlightening.
Yeah, and it's a wild topic. I mean,
it is, and I don't think we even went too far. We didn't even go far in. I mean, I think
keep going.
Yeah, I think if we had
stick around for the second hour of this episode,
most likely we would have a part 2. Most likely we should have a part 2, because I think we just touched the surface. This is like a very, like you said, it's a complex topic that can go on and on. So really, we just touched the surface of what the idea of cancel culture. But the little that they were able to give us, I think, was pretty informative and pretty educational.
Sometimes just like not thinking about the specific things, but thinking about the thing as a whole, like thinking about the phenomenon versus just each case by case, because you're gonna get fatigued.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. So thank you, Ali and Kamal, for joining us. It was a pleasure getting you both on here to grace us with your presence and give us some knowledge. So we definitely want to have you back for future conversations. Until next time, people, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day and see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Let's Talk, the Afro Style podcast with Amaka and Camellia. We hope you enjoyed it. If you missed this episode and other episodes, you can catch up on YouTube and Spotify. And be sure to subscribe, comment, and email us at info@afrostylemag.com. We'd love to hear from you.